Today we're comparing the for loop and the for each loop. They're both very similar, and they're also very different in that the for loop has a fixed number of iterations based on a loop index and parameters specified for the loop index. And the for each loop has an indefinite number of iterations based on iterating through entries in either an array or a list. Let's look at a couple examples to make this more clear. I basically have a button event handler, and it has local variables of int ix, which becomes an index for the for loop, a string item which becomes a string that gets written to a multi-line text box, and then a list of type string that's instantiated on a new list string. To look at the form itself for this, we have the run button that we're just looking at, the run event handler, and then we have the multi-line list. Initially we write out to the multi-line list using the text box method append text, which appends a string, and normally it would just make this string longer and longer, except we're concatenating the string with environment.newline, which will put a new line character and create a new line inside the list each time. Then we have the for loop, which takes the index and initially sets it to 0, and then it says do this loop while ix is less than 6. So it'll go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and then when it's 6 it'll stop looping. And what you do each loop is this ix++ auto increment. Actually, if you didn't have this in there, it would loop forever because ix would just be 0 every loop. And then within the body of the for loop, we do a string format to the item string variable. And we've seen this before in the console.writeline, where we use a format string and then arguments after the format string that are replaced by that replace markers that have angle bracket 0, angle bracket 1, angle bracket, and so on, based on the position of the parameters after the format string. Here we just have one parameter, so we just have a brace 0 brace. And then within the for loop, we once again do a text box append text of the string item we've just created with string format, and once again concatenate an environment.newline, so it'll put each line on a line by itself. But we also do a list add method, which will take the list we defined up here and start adding each of these items to it. So since we have 6 items, this list will be 6 items long. Then after the for loop, we do a text box append text, and this time print out the literal string for each loop phase, and concatenate an environment.newline to put it on a line by itself. And then we get to the for each loop, which actually just has one line in the body, and the test part of the for each loop basically says create a string named str entry, and then for each item in the list set one after another values in the list equal to the str entry variable. So in other words, the first time through, str entry will be equal to str list square bracket 0 square bracket second time through str entry will be equal to str list square bracket 1 square bracket, and so on, iterating through each member of the list until when it finishes the list it drops out of the loop. And then within the body of the for each loop we do a text box append text of the str entry, which is getting set successively to each of the list members, and concatenate that with an environment.new line, so we put each of these entries on a line by itself. Well, if we compile and run this program and then press the run loops button, you see we have the for loop phase and items 0 through 5, which added all these items to the list. And then we have the for each loop phase, which iterates through this list and prints out essentially the same thing. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and learned a lot, and don't forget to subscribe.